Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Cajuns Insider. My name is Abdul Abusada, co-host of the Cajun Sports Talk podcast show. Alongside with me today is not Banyan Turner. He is out for work for a couple more days. So it is just going to be me solo over here on Cajuns Insider on our final episode of Cajuns Insider, or at least final game preview episode of Cajuns Insider for the 2025 football season. Of course, as we all know, the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns this upcoming Wednesday are playing in the 68 Ventures Bowl against the Blue Hens of Delaware. The Cajuns right now are in Mobile, Alabama to play this game against the Blue Hens. And so looking forward to it. Look, I had said this, a lot. Just about over a month and a half ago, this team was 2-6, and no one expected this team to win out. Okay, you were 2-6. Your two wins, came against McNeese and Marshall. You beat Marshall in an overtime, thriller, and of course, you beat McNeese. McNeese is your FCS, team. But, you were 2-6, you weren't winning games, and there was just not much hope, at least not from the fan base. Well, the team themselves had hope in themselves, and they had a 4-game winning streak to finish the season, to go from 2-6 to 6-6 and make their 8th consecutive bowl game. And it's, look, as difficult as it has been this season for us fans to watch, and as difficult as it has been for the football team to play their games, because it has been difficult on them more than it has on our fan base, who have had to sit and watch this team just, suffer, so to speak. And for them to go 6-6 after starting 2-6 is a very special thing. And got to give credit where credit is due. This team, when they were 2-6, they had not had a 2-game, 3-game, 4-game winning streak. Their only winning streak in the first 8 games of the season was a 1-game winning streak. They couldn't win 2 back-to-back games. And so the last 4 games of the season, they go 4-0. And, of course, that all finished with them beating UL Monroe 30-27 in an overtime game. That game did go into overtime, and the Cajuns were able to get it done. And so they earned their 8th consecutive bowl game. And look, I didn't care what bowl game we went to. I didn't think it mattered much for a team that went 6-6, despite what they've suffered this season. And I don't know if you can really blame Coach Dez and company for all the shortcomings that this team has had this season. It has truly been a very, very difficult season. So I'm going to kind of talk about what we're expected to see against Delaware, the Blue Hens, who, for those of y'all who don't know, are in their first year of FBS football. We're going to kind of talk about them. But before we talk about them, I know there's a few things that headlined, UL football in the past, I guess, week or so. Obviously, if you guys don't know, the Cajuns are obviously trying to fill up their schedule for the 2026 season, their non-conference schedule. News broke out just a few days ago that UL will be heading to the University of Southern California week 2 of the 2026 season. They will be facing the South Carolina. Sorry, I said South Carolina. Look, I read USC as South Carolina. They're going to be facing the USC Trojans in Southern California, in Los Angeles, in week 2 of the 2026 season. Obviously, USC this season has been a really good football team. I even, wrote a column about USC and, of course, the opponent that we're going to be facing next season when we go to Los Angeles. By the way, this is the first time that UL is going to be facing against USC in football. USC is a Big Ten school. They are 2-0 against Sunbelt teams. UL is 0-6 against Big Ten opponents. And so UL will have a chance to, earn their first win against a Big Ten opponent next year. look, USC is obviously a really great football team. At least they were this year. They went 9-3. They finished ranked 16th in the country. They had wins against Michigan. They had win against Iowa. They finished the season top 10 in total offense. They averaged 472 yards per game and 36.5 points scored per game. Obviously, their quarterback and their running back situation has been, high-powered, one of the best in the country, and they have a potential to be back next season when the Cajuns do make the trip to South Los Angeles, I guess you could say. So that's that. The Trojans are going to be facing the TCU Horned Frogs in the Alamo Bowl later this month. So that's that. That's one of the games that we got scheduled for our non-conference schedule next year. Now, at the time that this was announced, by the way, this was announced on December 11th, which was 4 days ago, when we found out on Thursday that the Cajuns would be going to USC to play the Trojans. At that time, the non-conference schedule for the Cajuns was full. So, next season, they're going to kick off the season at home against Lamar, an FCS opponent. They're going to, after that, of course, head to USC to play the Trojans in week 2. That's going to be their West Coast game. They're going to come back in week 3 at home and play the University of Alabama, Birmingham, the Blazers at home of the American Conference on September 19th. And then the fourth non-conference schedule game was supposed to be Louisiana Tech, which was supposed to be played in Ruston on September 26th. Well, news broke out today that the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs removed that game against UL on September 26th of next year. And no, it's not because they're afraid to play UL. It's not because of that. It would never be this case because that is a game that should be played regardless. I'm pretty sure both sides would be happy for this football game to happen, and it's going to happen every single year. But Louisiana Tech removed UL off the schedule for next season and replaced them with Army, who they will be playing, I believe, on October the 6th, I think. October 6th, October 9th. They'll be playing them in October, early October. So we are not going to be playing Louisiana Tech next season, at least for an out-of-conference game. And the reason why they had to do that, the Bulldogs had to do that, of course, is if the Bulldogs do move into the Sun Belt Conference, you can't have a UL versus Louisiana Tech out-of-conference game because they're going to be in the conference. So you can't, do that. So out of precaution, now we don't know for sure if Louisiana Tech is going to be in the Sun Belt Conference next year or if they're going to be in the Sun Belt Conference the year after. We don't know that for sure. But, and this was supposed to happen soon, the decision to remove UL off of their schedule because, look, the Sun Belt schedule is coming out in late February, early March, late February. You can't have Louisiana Tech on the schedule still if they plan on coming into the conference next season. So they removed the Cajuns, and so Louisiana Tech's non-conference schedule now includes Baylor and Army. I forgot who else they play, but no longer the Cajuns as far as non-conference schedule. If Louisiana Tech does end up being in the Sun Belt Conference next season, we will play Louisiana Tech, and not sure whether that game will be at Louisiana Tech or if it will be here in Lafayette. More than likely, that game will be in Ruston. And the reason why I say this is I'm assuming with, of course, Texas State leaving the Sun Belt Conference, Louisiana Tech will inherit Texas State's schedule, which means that, because we played Texas State every single year and, we rotate every year, we go there, then we play it here, then we play it there, then we play it here. This year, we played it here in Lafayette. Next season, if Texas State was to be in the conference, we would be heading to Texas State to play them. So assuming that the schedule will be inherited by, why is my Siri on? Assuming Louisiana Tech does inherit Texas State's schedule, UL will be going to Ruston to play Louisiana Tech. So regardless, assuming that, Louisiana Tech does end up in the Sun Belt next year, we will be heading to Ruston regardless. It's just different dates than what was originally scheduled for the non-conference game. So that's that. So basically right now, UL is looking for a fourth non-conference opponent to face. And I'm pretty sure we're going to get word on who we will be facing very soon. Obviously, like I said, the schedule is coming out in a couple of months. So I'm pretty sure the Cajuns are going to want to get that nailed out probably in the next couple of weeks. So don't be surprised if we get an announcement in the next couple of weeks about who we face. I know there were some suggestions out there. I made a post on our Cajun Sports Talk X profile, and I asked, who do you think we will face as our fourth non-conference opponent? And I know somebody said North Alabama. A Texas Tech fan said, come play Texas Tech, which I wouldn't be opposed to. I mean, they're a pretty good football team, and I don't know if we really want to do that, considering we're already making a trip to South Carolina, who is a top 20 powerhouse. Somebody said Texas State or Jacksonville State. I mean, can you imagine the year after Texas State leaves the conference that we go and play Texas State as a non-conference opponent and extend our winning, record of 13-0 to 14-0 against them? It could be it'll be interesting to see. But the Cajuns are looking for a full fourth non-conference game for the next season. And it is to be determined who that opponent will be. More than likely, it will be an away game. I don't think we'll have a home game and have 7 home games. I don't even think, with the financial situation going on at UL, I don't even think that's going to be in any realm of possibility right now. So it's going to be an away game. It's going to be a non-conference game, just a matter of who it's going to be. I know Terry Johnson, former UL player, posted, and I'm going to share this right now. He had a list of non-conference opponents who are looking for a fourth game or a game to fill that he says he'd like UL to schedule in priority order. He said Memphis, which I would love to play Memphis, UNLV, Boise, Ohio, NIU, USF, Colorado State, Stanford, Utah State, Fresno, Washington State, FIU, FAU, Temple, and Miami. And then had a space in between, and then on the bottom, Texas State. I think it's a great list. I would love to play Memphis. I would love to play UNLV. I would love to play Boise. So we'll see. We'll see what the Cajuns decide in the next couple of weeks and who we will end up facing. So that is that. So Cajuns are going to be heading to Los Angeles to play an out-of-conference game next season, and then the second out-of-conference game is going to be determined. We also had news later that day that we will be playing the TCU Horned Frogs in 2028. That game will be played in Fort Worth as a non-conference game, of course. And forgot to mention the trip to USC that we are going to be taking next season. The Cajuns are going to be guaranteed $1.3 million to play that game. So it's a big deal, and I hate to say it, but you lose the game or you get blown out, whatever the case is, you're still coming home with $1.3 million. Of course, that's after your expenses, but you're guaranteed $1.3 million. You win the game, you're ranked in the top 25, and you get the $1.3 million. So it's a win-win situation either way. Look, I love when we play good opponents like this. It frustrates me, of course, when we lose them, because, most of the time you lose those games, especially when you're playing a Big Ten or an SEC opponent. I mean, it's just reality. We got to face reality here. And so now maybe we end up with a really good team next year. We saw a lot of promise towards the end of this season. If we end up with a pretty good team next year, we could give them a good fight. And like Coach Des said in media availability the other day, we will just go and give them hell and see what we could do. Could pull off a win against USC, you'd be ranked in the top 25, assuming they're ranked in the top 25. I'm pretty sure a win against USC in week 2 next year, that would definitely put you in the top 25. So, I'm excited. I regardless of what people say, I know some people are not happy about playing USC, this being a money game and all that. I'm happy. I'm not 100% excited for it, but, I'm happy that we're playing a pretty good opponent, getting the national exposure. So that is that. All right, enough of future schedules. UL is going to be playing in the 68 Ventures Bowl versus Delaware on Wednesday. The game's going to be played in Mobile, Alabama. Cajuns are 6-6. A little bit about Delaware. Delaware is a 6-6 football team. This is their first season in the FBS. They are a Conference USA team. Look, I'm going to be completely honest on my little scouting report on Delaware. First things first, Delaware has a really, really good passing game. Is it really, really, really good? They pass the ball a lot. Let's just put it that way. They pass the ball a lot, and their success rate's pretty high. Okay. Now, granted, their opponents, Conference USA. By no means am I trying to say the Conference USA, they're doing all these passing against Conference USA opponents. It's the Conference USA. I see them to be inferior to the Sun Belt. Okay. But regardless, first year in the FBS, and this team, and I had the stat over here, their passing game, they average 303 yards per game through the air. I don't know of many schools that have that type of stat line. And they are ranked pretty high in passing yards in college football. Their quarterback, Minicucci is his last name. What a great name, by the way, Minicucci. I forgot his first name, and I'm trying to find it over here. But Minicucci is a quarterback that came in, obviously the team came into Nick Minicucci is his name. He has 3,500 passing yards, 22 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. And let me reiterate, 3,500 passing yards. I know Joe Burrow had 6,000 passing yards. That was with 2-3, postseason games, but 3,500 yards. This quarterback is averaging 303 yards per game through the air. Great quarterback. He's a 6'2", 215-pound junior. And this team is going to throw the ball. They are really, really good at passing the ball. They're pass heavy. They will throw it 40, 45 times in this game. I'm going to say this right now. I don't like this. If you have watched Cajuns football this season, you have realized how bad our pass defense has been. Okay? We have faced pretty good quarterbacks this season in the Sun Belt. You faced Carlos Del Rio Wilson out of Marshall. You faced Jalen Rayner. You faced Texas. You faced Texas State's quarterback. You faced Arkansas State's quarterback. Carlos Del Rio Wilson faced Marshall's quarterback. You even faced a quarterback who ranks lowest in the Sun Belt Conference in passing yards of ULM. Aiden Armenta averaged, I think, 140 passing. I don't know what the stat was. He averaged 140 passing yards this season. Yet we allowed 311 yards against ULM in our final regular season game. 311 yards and 3 touchdowns to Aiden Armenta. By the way, I'm going to say this right now. Aiden Armenta this season has not had a game where he passed for more than 200 yards prior to this game against us. He did also not have a game this season where he passed for more than 2 touchdowns. He passed for 3 touchdowns against UL. This season, Aiden Armenta had 12 passing touchdowns. 25% of them came from UL. Like I said, ULM came into this game ranked worse in the Sun Belt Conference in passing yards per game, touchdown passes, whatever the stat is about passing, they were pretty low in the Sun Belt, if not worse. And yet they came into Cajun Field and threw the ball for 311 yards. Mind you, 19 completions, which, if you do the math over here, that is 16 yards per play or per completion. What I'm trying to say here is this defense allowed a lot of yards against Aiden Armenta and UL Monroe. They did the same thing to every single other player that they have faced, really good quarterback so far in the Sun Belt. You look at UL's defense against Sun Belt opponents. You have averaged 255 yards. Okay, so I'm going to put it this way. The stat line that I have here is with Tyree Skipper, and I'm going to get to Tyree Skipper in just a second. But bottom line, this team has allowed an average of about 270 yards per game against Sunbelt quarterbacks this season. That is not good. A lot of it has to do with this team allowing a lot of big plays, receivers consistently being open, and an inconsistent effort to making tackles, making the big play tackles on defense. This is probably the worst opponent to face in a bowl game after how banged up this team has been this season, because Delaware passes the ball so well, and you have not done a really great job this season at defending the pass. So that's that. Delaware is going to throw the ball, and we'll get to a little bit more on that in just a second, but let's focus and shift gears on UL's side of things first. Obviously, we know that our offensive line is decimated. It is awful. I've even heard that there could potentially not be a spring game for the Cajuns next season because of how banged up this offensive line is. Now, I know that might sound like it's a stretch, and I don't know how true that is. I heard it from somewhere that sounded reliable to me. That was reliable. I just don't know exactly where I got it from. But the bottom line is that this team is not doing a great job in terms of, holding up on their offensive line. And I'm not blaming the team here. I'm not saying this is the team's fault, but you've had so many season-ending injuries. Cooper Fordham, your starting center, is out. George Jackson is out. Jamarian Gooch, out. Zay Alexander, out. Jacoby Ism, out. Bryant Williams, your star left tackle, is not going to be playing in this game against Delaware because he opted out for the transfer portal. So that is 6 offensive linemen that are either injured or not, transferring out, and we only have one player transferring out, and that's Bryant Williams. Your offensive, and this list probably is larger. I didn't get an Sunbelt availability report. I don't know if the Sunbelt puts out an availability report for the bowl games. I've been trying to look for it, and I couldn't find it, and it's still not up there. So I don't know what the injury situation seems like for the Cajuns, but I do have the depth chart of it, in front of me. Your starting 5 for this game as of right now is Ryder Bentley, left tackle. He's a redshirt freshman going to be making his first start. You have Caden Morrow, redshirt junior. He has experience, obviously, we know. Your left guard. Andrew Martinez, redshirt sophomore. He's going to be your starting center for this game, replacing, of course, Cooper Fordham, who went down a few weeks ago. Matt Broussard's your right guard, redshirt sophomore, and then Jax Harrington is your right tackle, your redshirt senior player who's been on this team forever. So you have a couple of guys who can anchor it down, but you also have some new guys. Obviously, your new guys, Ryder Bentley, redshirt freshman, did not play last season. Very rarely played this season. I don't even know if he had a snap this season. But he is making his first start against Delaware on Wednesday. So that just goes to show that how decimated this offensive line is. Jax Harrington, we were told, was battling turf toe and a high ankle sprain all season. And he said this, even with the limited mobility and playing both guard and tackle. Remember, Jax Harrington's originally a right guard. He made the move to right tackle because of all the injuries that we ended up suffering this season. And George Jackson's injury ended up moving Jax Harrington to right tackle. And he said, even with this limited mobility and having to play 2 positions, he said that the responsibility he felt towards his teammates outweighed the pain. This is the mindset that you need to. This is the mindset I want to see from players, especially when it comes to a bowl game or any postseason game in general. Obviously, Jax Harrington, this is going to be his last game of his collegiate career. And he is out there knowing that this responsibility of him being there and being there for his teammates is outweighed more than the pain that he is suffering. So this is an offensive line that has been banged up. And, to play a Delaware team who, look, defensively, I don't think Delaware is really good. Defensively, they're very similar to UL's defense in a lot of ways. They have 13 interceptions, which, they have a really good safety core, by the way. They will fly around. You have Mysone Pollard and KT Shea. Both of those players have a combined 7 interceptions on the season. The team has 13 interceptions this season. So nothing special. I really didn't find any other stat line about their defense that really points, really stands out here. So bottom line, this defense, they're okay. They're decent. They're average. I compare them to UL's defense a lot. They will allow big plays from here, from time to time. And they might not have as many playmakers as UL has, but they're not really a defensive team. This is an offensive team that we're facing. They pass the ball really well, and they can run the ball decently. So that is that. Tyree Skipper, our star safety, as we all know, was suspended for the rest of the year against the Texas. After we faced Texas State. For those of y'all who don't know, there was an altercation after the game against, after the Texas State game when we beat Texas State 42-39. And Tyree Skipper swung, from what we've heard, swung a helmet at another player. And, the altercation, of course, happened. And so there were suspensions by the Sun Belt Conference. The Sun Belt suspended 6 players from Texas State, and they suspended 7 players from UL. UL took the bigger hit of the two teams in this suspension of the altercation. The biggest punishment that Texas State had was Tymier Jackson, who supposedly started this altercation, only had a 2-game suspension. Everybody else, the other 5 players on their team, had a 1-game suspension. As far as the Cajuns, 7 players were suspended. 6 of them were suspended for 1 game, and or I believe 5 of them were suspended for 1 game. 1 of them suspended for 2 games. And Tyree Skipper, our star safety, was suspended for the rest of the season, including any postseason games. So originally, he was suspended and was not supposed to play in this game. We got news last week that Tyree Skipper was reinstated by the Sun Belt Conference for the bowl game. And here's what Coach Des had to say just a couple of days ago as far as the news about Tyree Skipper being reinstated.
Yeah, I'm incredibly grateful for Commissioner Gill for reconsidering his suspension. I reached out to him personally, and he returned. I sent him an email. He returned with a phone call, asked about what Skip was doing, about how he handled the suspension. He'd seen the public apology that he did that was very, very well written and very heartfelt. What I would say this to everybody, Skip has handled that situation as well as you possibly could. He did not. He hasn't missed one thing. Hasn't been late for one thing. He's been at practice every day. The workouts. He's been up in Ms. D's office making sure he's finishing his schoolwork. He's already graduated. He's done everything the way that you want a guy to do. He got Scout Team Player of the Week last week because he went on Scout Team and whatever it took to help our team win. So I'm very grateful. And if there's anyone who deserves another chance, the kid for 6 years has represented himself. Represent our university and the Sun Belt Conference subsequently, in an exemplary manner. We all make mistakes, and like I said, I think to be judged on our worst moments, I don't think any of us want to be judged on that. So I'm very grateful. Skip has taken full responsibility. He's been a model teammate leader. He was voted team captain almost unanimously by the entire team. So he's always meant a lot to this team. So to have him back is something I'm happy for him. He gets one more with the Cajuns.
So Coach Des, obviously grateful, emotional about, Tyrese Skipper's return onto this team. Obviously, I'm getting goosebumps as I'm saying this. Tyrese Skipper was on this team. I mean, he's been on this team ever since he, signed onto this team from high school. He's built up the opportunity to be able to start and lead this team. He was this team's star player on defense. He was this leader, at least if not on the entire defense, the DB group. So, obviously great news that we are getting Tyrese Skipper back. The Sun Belt Conference Commissioner Keith Gill said that Tyrese's remorse for his role in the post-game incident at the conclusion of the Texas State at Louisiana football game became apparent. And that's how the, reinstation, I guess you wouldn't call it, whatever the word is, that's what led to Keith Gill deciding on reinstating Tyrese Skipper. Here's what Tyrese Skipper had to say. He was also at media availability. Here's what he said about the moment he found out he would be reinstated and his, of course, emotions.
And they'll even put the title. He asked me a couple questions and stuff, man. Answered those questions well. He was really shocked I was still with the team, practicing, man. Just coaching my guys up and stuff. And it was the greatest news I got all year, man. Just finishing one more with the guys, man, that means everything to me, man. Just this the game, you'll remember for the rest of your life, the last game of your collegiate career. So it was everything, man. I even shed some tears. So I'm ready to get after it.
Obviously, it's just a special moment. And it goes to show how special Tyrese Skipper is. He was not reinstated just because this team's playing in a bowl game and that the conference wanted him to, wanted this team to, of course, win this, bowl game. He was reinstated because of his actions, of him being there at practice every single day, not missing practices, not being late to anything, not missing a team function. Tyrese Skipper was basically he was basically a scout player for this team every single day after his suspension, not knowing that he would ever return and play another snap on the field in front of fans. And yet, that is the glory of it. You put in all this hard work. He even, like Coach Des said over here, he won Scout Team Player of the Week last week or the week before. He was voted, team player. This team loves him. And it's clear that he means so much to not only the coaching staff and to the players, but, the fan base in general. This is a player that, is determined and claimed full responsibility for what happened. And ever since he put out an apology letter, of course, the day after he was suspended, he went on X and put out an apology, and Keith Gill saw that. And from what I heard, Tyrese Skipper had a one-on-one Zoom call with Keith Gill that ended with Keith Gill deciding to reinstate Tyrese Skipper. So you don't hear this much often, where the conference suspends a player for the rest of the season, including bowl games, and because of a player's positive reaction to what he did and taking full responsibility for what he did. That's what led to Tyrese Skipper being reinstated and being able to play one final game in college football, because it is obviously painful to end your college career on such a negative note that it ended against Texas State. You never want to finish your college career in a game where, you ended it off on a sour taste. You won the game, but it didn't, obviously it went into the locker room with a sour taste, of course, because of the altercation. You never want to end it that way. You never want to end it knowing that you were the reason that you couldn't finish the season. And so he took full responsibility and worked hard in and out every single day during practices, during all team functions, and the result was Sunbelt Commissioner Keith Gill reinstating him and allowing him to play one last game in college football in the bowl game. It's truly something special. By the way, this was a decision that was received or reached with the support of both UL and Texas State administration. So, of course, Coach Des, of course, was not only remorseful and grateful for Sunbelt Commissioner Keith Gill, but also for the Texas State administration for allowing and approving the Sunbelt Conference to reinstate Tyree Skipper. So, of course, it's a big thing. And look, I even had some stats with and without Tyree Skipper about this defense. With Tyree Skipper, this team, of course, Tyree Skipper's played 10 games this season with a team. He missed 2 because of the suspension. The first, those 10 games, which was the first 10 games of the season, UL averaged 217 yards allowed through the air per game. Without Tyree Skipper, the 2 games that he missed, the team allowed an average of 284 yards per game, one of which was to ULM, where they allowed 311. Now, obviously, those stats are kind of skewed because you've played Sunbelt quarterbacks who this season have been pretty good, I got to say. The 6 games that Tyree Skipper did play against Sunbelt Conference opponents, this team allowed an average of 255 yards per game through the air. Without Tyree Skipper in the 2 games, 284 yards. So clearly Tyree Skipper makes a difference here. He is a big part of this team and its leadership. And so having Tyree Skipper back is truly, truly something that, we're grateful for. And I can't wait to see Tyree Skipper dress out one last time and playing this game. Obviously, like I said earlier, Delaware is a really, really good passing offense team. And here's what Coach Jim Salgado, the defensive coordinator of UL, had to say about Delaware's offense and what makes them so unique compared to other really good passing teams that we've faced this season.
I think they're going to spread you out a little bit more so. They'll even put the tight ends out wide. They do a lot of different things passing-wise, concepts, right? High lows, sprint out. They'll sprint out to the field a lot. They'll give you some gimmick plays, right? They've shown up. They're going to give you some oddball formations. Like, you guys will look out there on one of the play and you'll be like, what is this? How they get lined up, something funky. And you got to be prepared for it, That's the biggest thing I would say with them. Their receivers are good. They spread them out. It's not like they just have one guy. They're going to target a lot of them. The quarterback will get it around all of them, and they'll give us a good challenge. And the tight end's a good player too. They'll give you a little bit of 12 where you got 2 tight ends on the field, but most of the time it's going to be 3 wideouts and a tight end on the field with a running back.
Like you said, this is a team that they're going to spread you out. I mean, you look at their statistics. Delaware has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 receivers with over 200 yards receiving this season. Okay. For comparison, by the way, UL only has 3. Okay. UL only has 3 wide receivers who have 200 or more receiving yards this season. They have 7. So they will spread the ball around. This is a team that will find a way to make big plays. And you got to give a lot of credit to Delaware's offensive line. Their offensive line is pretty good. Like Coach Salgado said, every week when you watch Delaware, they are going to give you something different. It's not the same every week. They're going to give you funky packages or formations. They're going to give you different looks. Most of the time, they'll have 3 receivers down in the middle. 1 tight end. Sometimes they'll have 2 tight ends. They do a lot of different formations. They're going to give you a lot of looks. And that's what makes Delaware's passing game so special. And that's why they average 303 yards per game through the air. You look at their receivers. They got Sean Wilson, who has 796 receiving yards. Kyrie Duplessis, he has 755 receiving yards. Those two receivers have a combined 7 touchdowns. And look, they even have tight ends over here who are getting receiving yards as well. So this is a team that will want to beat you downfield. They're going to want to pass the ball. From what I've seen, Delaware is not the type of team that's going to take deep shots, so to speak. They're going to take deep shots every once in a while, but they have receivers that can find open space, especially when the defense is playing man on man. These receivers will get open. The one thing that I think UL's receiving core, and look, UL's receiving core, this team has a pretty good receiving core. Let's not get wrong in that. Delaware has a pretty good receiving core. They have a good passing game in general. UL obviously has been skewed and very suppressed this season because of all the quarterback injuries and, of course, the offensive line injuries. You haven't been able to have success passing the ball, for one, because your offensive line hasn't been healthy, and two, you've had 3 different quarterbacks play for you this season. At least for the first half of the season, you had 3 different quarterbacks playing for you. You didn't know what direction you were going to go. You started off with Walker Howard. Of course, Walker Howard was supposed to be the starter for the season, got hurt, had Daniel Beal in. Daniel Beal really never, clicked with this offense just yet. And look, he's a young player. You can't really, target him for that. It's a really dramatic change that he had to take in taking over this offense. Didn't work out. You put in Lunch Winfield, and he puts a spark in this offense with his legs and his passing ability. So UL hasn't, of course, been able to pass the ball as well as Delaware has. Not saying that UL would have had the same stats as Delaware. Once again, they're averaging over 300 yards per game. 7 different receivers have 200 or more receiving yards. But bottom line, getting Tyree Skipper back was a very, very, very big key for this UL defense, because I'll be honest. I'm going to be honest, whether you're going to hate me on this or not. UL's going to get beat a lot in this game. Okay. If what we have seen this season continues, okay. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. I might be wrong because this team might come out more prepared. But from what we've seen this season, this team has struggled to suppress the big plays. Look what they did against Texas State. UL had allowed a lot of big plays at Texas State, which is the reason why Texas State scored 39 points against us. Against ULM, that was a really close game, and it wasn't really high scoring per se, but ULM, as awful as they are, they still took that game to overtime thanks to a 311-yard passing game that Aiden Armenta had against you. So you have flaws in this defense. And it's awkward because I look at this defensive depth chart and, we don't have many injured defensive players. There haven't been much injured defensive players on this team. One big name that's not appearing to me, in the depth chart here, who probably will not play in this game, he's been out for a few weeks, was Colin Jacob. He was a big part in this team, and not, he's still young, but he was growing into this team. He was becoming a very underrated defensive back. You lose him. Right now, of course, with Tyree Skipper being back, he's starting at safety. Alongside of him on the other side of safety, you got a redshirt freshman in Lake Bates starting. So other than that, your team is pretty much healthy on the defensive side, and it has been for most of the season. So what I'm trying to say is you've had the players, but there's just been a lot of inconsistency. I'm not sure what it is. Is it, not preparing enough during practices? Are they doing something wrong that they need to be working on, but they're not, working on it because obviously it hasn't been working? I don't know. But bottom line, getting Tyree Skipper is a big piece. And I still think that Delaware will throw for over 270 yards in this game, even with Tyree Skipper back, because that is who Delaware is. They're going to throw the ball a lot in this game. They are going to throw it at least, mark my words here, because they've done it pretty much all season. They're going to throw the ball for at least 40 attempts in this game. That's who they are. That is their team. That is their style of offense. Minicucci is going to want to get that ball out of his hands. So that is, of course, that. On another note, going back now to Delaware's defense. Their defense is not that good. I compare them a lot to UL's defense in many ways. They allow big plays. Now, the only thing that UL I see, if I had to compare both defenses, I think UL's defense is better. And the only reason why is because UL has the players. I think Delaware's team is rather young, I guess, per se, not as experienced as UL's defense. But bottom line, this game is going to be between two pretty poor defenses. And thus, that's why your over-under right now for this game is 61.5. So it's going to be a shootout, to say the least. That was the first thing that I said when I first saw us getting Delaware as our bowl game, and I read a little bit about Delaware. The first thing I said was, this is going to be a shootout game. And the total has been increasing ever since this game started. I think it was at like 57, 58, 58.5. It's now at 61.5. I wouldn't be surprised if this over-under goes up to 65. I mean, that's how high scoring I expect this game is going to be. Now, of course, with bowl games, a lot of us worry about this. Opt-outs. Great news for the Cajuns. We only have one player who has opted out in this bowl game. Now, unfortunately, this is the position that you're hoping no player would be opting out of a bowl game to transfer for. But it happened. Bryant Williams, your starting left tackle, has opted out of the bowl game because he declared for the transfer portal. And usually under Coach Dez, if a player opts out from a bowl game to declare into the transfer portal, Coach Dez usually has them clear out their locker and they won't be able to play. So Coach Dez did confirm, by the way, the other day that Ryder Bentley, redshirt freshman, is going to start in place of Bryant Williams, and Balin Williams, who is a true freshman, is also going to get some snaps. So this is an offensive line that is missing a really big key player because that player decided to transfer or is deciding to transfer out, entering the portal. So luckily, that is the only player who entered the transfer portal from UL. Now, when they say enter the transfer portal technically has not opened, but we're talking about declaration to enter the transfer portal. Only one player has done that so far. Other than that, Cooper Fordham, George Jackson, Jamarian Gooch, Zay Alexander, Jacoby Ism, all 5 of those players are offensive linemen. They're not going to play in this game because they had season-ending injuries, so they're not going to be playing. Of course, Carter Millerin, long snapper, he has not played all season. He's not going to play in this game. I don't have the injury report on me. I just have the depth chart. That's really only the names that stand out to me are those 6 players, plus Bryant Williams declaring for the portal. So, look, UL is banged up on the offensive line. Outside the offensive line, they're not really banged up. I mean, receiving core, they're pretty healthy. You got Sheldon Sampson, you got Robert Williams, and you got Charles Robertson. Those are your 3 starters that they're there. Your tight ends are there. Keaton Jensen, Brock Chappell, Trey Miller, Teddy Golick, they're all there. Your defense is for them pretty much intact. Everybody is healthy, with the exception of Colin Jacob. And so, look, you're just pretty much banged up on the offensive line. And I think that's going to play a somewhat of a role. It has this season. Your injured offensive line has, obviously played a role in the reason why UL is not close to as good as the passing game as Delaware is. Now, I'm not saying that UL's offense is going to be awful. Obviously, we have a pretty good running game, and that this season has been suppressed a little bit as well because of the offensive line health issues. But bottom line, look, I think this is going to be, like I said, a high-scoring game. I can very much see this game with both teams having 30 or more points on the board. My prediction right now is that UL will win this game 38-31. It's going to be a high-scoring game. I think UL is going to have 4 offensive touchdowns, 2 by way of the air for Lunch Winfield. I do think Lunch does get a rushing touchdown, and I do see a 4th touchdown coming on the ground, to Zylan Perry, Bill Davis, Stephen Blanca, one of those players. So I can see 4 touchdowns on the board. I also see that Tyree Skipper will have an interception return in this game. So that is going to be my prediction. I do think that Tyree Skipper, in his first game back, of course, of suspension and final game of collegiate career, I do think that Tyree Skipper will finish off his collegiate career with a pick 6. I do think he will pick off a ball, period. I can almost guarantee, and I would place a bet if I could, that Tyree Skipper will get an interception in this game. But I do think that my prediction is that he will have a pick 6 in this game to finish off his career on a great note. Give me UL to win this game, like I said, 38-31. Delaware is going to score. They're going to score touchdowns. They're going to throw the ball down our throats. I hate to say it, but you have not done a really good job defending the pass this season, including against the worst passing offense in the Sun Belt in ULM. Still allowed to earn 11 yards against them. God knows what's going to happen against Delaware. You do have Tyree Skipper back. So my prediction is that Nick Minicucci will have 300 passing yards. I think he will pass for 2 touchdowns, and he will have a great game, unfortunately speaking, but it is what it is. That's just how the reality of this UL defense has been this season. It will come down to who controls the ball last, and I do think the Cajuns have that opportunity. Usually, UL's defense does clutch up in the end, as they have in the last 4 games this season against ULM. They did it. They did it against, they did it against Texas State. They did it against, forgot who else we played, Arkansas State, and then they did it against South Alabama. This team usually, they do so poorly. The defense does okay, pretty good in the first half, and then in the second half, for like the first 25 minutes of the second half, they do very, very poorly. And then the last 3-4 minutes, the defense clutches up. So I think it will be who retains the ball last or who makes the big play last. And I do think that will be UL. Give me UL to win this game 38-31, holding up the 68 Ventures Bowl trophy and earning their first, I guess we could say second winning season under Coach Dez. And so that's that. That's pretty much all I have, I guess, to say about Delaware and this, 68 Ventures Bowl game. I'm really excited to see this game. I will be there. I'm going to be heading to Mobile on Wednesday to watch this game. Really excited for it. Look, I would probably not be heading to this game if this was a 10-2 team going to the 68 Ventures Bowl. Because, first of all, it's somewhat of a long trip, at least for me. I don't like long car drives. But you got to understand what this team has gone through, the injuries that they have gone through, the adversity they've had to face, and the fact that they've had to scratch and claw their way up every single week to be able to win games. To finish the season 6-6, like I said, I'm going to keep repeating it. To finish the season 6-6 after going 2-6, this team deserves our support. Cajun Nation, this team needs your support on Wednesday. So if you're not already planning on going to Mobile, I'd definitely make this trip to Mobile. This team has fought their way to getting a bowl game, even when the fan base lost faith. I lost faith in the team. I didn't think this team would go 6-6 after being 2-6. The team still had that faith in them. During post-game, after going 2-6, after the loss to Troy, you can just hear them say, we got one thing in mind, and that is going to a bowl game. That finishing out the season on a winning note and making it to a postseason, having a 13th game to play. That is the goal that this team had, and they definitely earned it. going 4-game winning streak, despite all that they've gone through. So this team deserves our support. And I will be heading to the game on Wednesday. By the way, I do have 3 tickets to the game. I got 1 for myself. I don't have anyone else coming with me. I am taking my mom with me to Mobile. She's, not a football fan, doesn't like the football atmosphere much. So not a sports fan in general. So I do have 2 extra tickets. If anybody wants them, if anybody needs tickets, hit us up at Cajun Sports Talk on our X. I'll probably just, have them for a really, really stupidly cheap price or even for free. And then just shoot us a message on Cajun Sports Talks X. And we'd like to have those tickets given to some Cajuns fans, a couple of Cajuns fans who are willing to be in Mobile to support this team. So that's really all I have as far as this game goes. I hope this Cajuns team wins and finishes with a winning note on a winning, streak. They finish this game with a win. That'll be a 5-game winning streak that this team finished off with after going 2-6. So obviously something special. Look, keep in mind, this is Delaware's first season in the FBS, and we've seen this story before. We played Western Kentucky, I believe it was, or was it Jacksonville State? It was Jacksonville State. We had this story just a few years ago in the New Orleans Bowl. It was a really good game. It was their first year of being in the FBS, if not or first year being eligible to play in a bowl game, if not first year in the FBS, and they put up a fight. And they took into overtime and won the game. The teams who transition up, and this is going to be a story for like tomorrow's podcast show, the Cajun Sports Talk podcast show. By the way, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on X at Cajun Sports Talk. We do have podcast shows covering Cajun country and beyond. We're going to be talking a lot about the college football playoffs tomorrow, but we will also talk about, FBS, FCS, stuff like that. This is going to be a big topic conversation. We do podcasts every Tuesday evenings on our YouTube, so subscribe to our channel, follow us on our X, and stay updated. But teams who move up to the FBS, Delaware's coming into this game with more will and I'm trying to find the right way to put this. Delaware's coming into this game more fired up than the Cajuns are. The Cajuns, they've been in the spot before. They've played in all these bowl games. It's Ventures Bowl is obviously not a really big bowl game. You're getting I think it's $1.5 million buyout for whoever wins. So it's a pretty decent buyout. But Delaware's coming in with, they want to compete. This is their first ever bowl game in the modern era. And so they're going to want to win. So we'll see how it goes. That game is going to be in Mobile, Alabama, 7:30 p.m. local time in Mobile on Wednesday evening. The game will be streamed on ESPN, nationally televised. Go Cajuns. Let's hope they win and finish the season on a really good note. So that's that. I think that'll wrap it up for today. I appreciate y'all for tuning into the Cajuns Insider show for today. Not sure if this will be our final show this season or not. We might have another show later this week or next week, kind of to just wrap up and you kind of recap the game, our thoughts on the game, and that'll pretty much be it. Not sure what the plans are as far as Cajuns Insider, as far as other sports. We'll probably just keeping this just a football show from now and just going live every once in a while. But hey, stay tuned on Be In The Know on all of their socials. That is, of course, where we go live here for Cajuns Insider. Like I said just a few minutes ago, we do go live for Cajun Sports Talk every Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. on our YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on there. And be ready for some Cajun Sports Talk podcast show. We'll be doing a little debating. Banyan, of course, won't be with me tomorrow. We'll have an interview with Banyan. He is working, by the way. I'm out of the state working. We'll have a little interview with him, and that'll be that on the Cajun Sports Talk podcast show. But Cajuns, Blue Hens, Wednesday at the 68 Ventures Bowl. Good luck to the Cajuns. My final prediction, 38-31, UL hoisting the 68 Ventures Bowl trophy. Have a great evening, everyone. Good luck to all the football teams out there. Good luck to the Cajuns. Safe drive to and from Mobile if you are heading there. Y'all have a good one, guys.